Alright, so for my Outside Novel 4 project, I chose The Blind Assassin by Margaret Atwood. Alright, so now we're going to take a look at a quote that I found pretty significant while I was reading the book. So it's on page 207, and it reads, "When you're young, you think that everything you do is disposable. You move from now to now, crumpling time up in your hands, tossing it away. You're your own speeding car. You think you can get rid of things, and people too. Leave them behind. You don't yet know about the habit they have of coming back. Time in dreams is frozen. You can never get away from where you've been." And this is sort of how the main character Iris is reflecting upon her life, because in the book, she's referring to how her past struggles led up to her becoming the woman that she is today, because it's told in the perspective of her already knowing what has happened, because she's an old woman, telling about how in life she's had to overcome stuff and how her experiences in life teach the audience to not waste time. So definitely it's very significant because it kind of makes me realize that, time isn't infinite. It's very limited, and you shouldn't just breeze through, like how the quote says, "You're your own speeding car." You can either speed through and get to the destination quickly, or you can also slow down a little bit, but also kind of enjoy the scenery. When you're young, you think that everything you do is disposable. That can kind of relate to how, like, when you're young, you don't really think about the consequences of things. You don't think about what's going to be happening in the future. You just kind of do things now to enjoy it. Um, Kind of going off of, you move from now to now, crumpling time up in your hands, tossing it away. At a young age, you don't really think about time, or you don't think about what's going to be happening in the future. So you just kind of think of time as kind of like a piece of paper that you don't use, just kind of crumple it up and toss it away. Your own speeding car, again, you can just speed through life, not looking at the details, not looking in at what's going to be valuable in life, or you can kind of slow down, enjoy the ride, and also sort of just like enjoy the scenery, as I said. Um, you think you can get rid of things, and people too, leave them behind. Someone might think that you're able to just forget about people and forget about your past, when honestly, as Iris is talking to her audience, like, her past made her the person that she is. So kind of forgetting about the past is sort of disadvantageous to her becoming the woman she is, because, okay, yeah, there might be people in your life and there might be times in your life that you can't forget or you want to get rid of, but really those are what make us us. They make us human, and they make us the kind of people that we want to share to others. Um, you don't yet know about the habit they have of coming back. Time in dreams is frozen. You can never get away from where you've been. Again, time in dreams, you can dream about anything, You can dream about becoming famous. You can dream about going on this wonderful vacation that you always wanted to go to as a kid. It's dreams are frozen, but actual life is not frozen. We have days, sun goes up, sun goes down. It's obvious that we actually have limited time. But you can never really get away from where you've been, meaning you can't get rid of the things you've seen, the experiences you've had, and also, too, kind of like how she refers to about you're your own speeding car. You can never just get away from the experiences that you had. You can never just forget about them and then just move on from it, because those are what actually just make us us. So I found that significant, because sometimes in life, I mean, alluding to senior year, it flew by, and that kind of makes me wonder, did I take full advantage of my year of learning, of having fun? Also, kind of getting the transition from senior year to college. That kind of makes me think, and I found that really significant in my understanding of the book, because Iris, how Atwood makes Iris as a character, she sort of just really makes her a great character to learn from. Not only to, like, learn from, but also to kind of, like, read as you're reading the book. Kind of like how, like, she starts as a kid, and then she goes all the way up to present Iris. And she's just, like, it's amazing how, like, such progression in character development has made her such uh, such an extraordinary person, and I definitely found that really great in my understanding of the book. Alright, so now we're going to be taking a look at another quote from the book, but now we'll be looking at a soapstone and Did's analysis of it, and how that helped me understand the book and its purpose. So, it's on page 26, it's relatively early in the book, but still earlier on in the book it had a lot going on. So, basically what happened was Iris's sister Laura committed suicide, and this is a conversation between Captain Chase, the father of Iris and Laura, talking to Iris about how, there's more meaning to life, even though you lost your sister, there could be good brought about it. So it reads on page 26, if you knew what was going to happen, if you knew everything that was going to happen, if you knew in advance the consequences of your own actions, you'd be doomed. You'd be ruined as God, you'd be a stone. You'd never drink or laugh or even get out of bed in the morning. You'd never love anyone ever again. You'd never dare to. And so the soapstone part about it, so the speaker is definitely Captain Chase the father, because he's talking to Laura about the suicide of Laura, and the occasion is, Laura's death. He wouldn't be talking about this, he wouldn't be talking seriously to Iris if, there wasn't something that had to be brought about it. So definitely Laura's death provoked, in a sense, his confrontation with Iris. The audience, in this case, the audience, he's talking to Iris, but also to Iris is kind of reflecting back upon what happened in her life. So in a sense, the audience is Iris, but it can be also thought of as us, as the audience as well, the readers of it. And then the purpose is to try to not take life for granted, because, you never know when you might go on to the next life. You never know when someone in your own life might perish. So you have to really consider, okay, am I spending my time wisely? Am I living my life to the fullest? Not just my life, but with other people as well. The subject, is pertaining to life, and how, you can't take it for granted, and you can't just, ride through life speeding away on the highway. And the tone of it, the tones I found comforting, because Captain Chase is kind of motivating Iris to kind of go on with her life, and to, you can't dwell on your sister's death, even though that it was monumental in your life. You can't just live in the past. You have to learn from the past, and you have to build upon yourself. So it was also comforting, but I also found it serious, because, the father is just it's a very serious subject, so he wants to make sure that he gets this point across in the most comforting, but also the most serious manner that he can. As for the Did's part, I underlined in blue the metaphors. You'd be ruined as God, and you'd be a stone. I was using similes and metaphors there, but also, too, I found interesting you'd be ruined as God, because it does say earlier on in the quote how if you knew in advance the consequences of your own actions, you'd be doomed. You'd be ruined as God. And that kind of relates how, God knows everything. He's omnipotent. He is going to know what's happening in the future, and that, in a sense, is what he's saying, God's downfall, that he knows what's going to happen, and, if you knew what was going to happen, then it would be kind of bad, because you wouldn't be able to take away as much, and you wouldn't be able to learn from what would happen in the past, because in the future that what was going to happen. As for the imagery part about it, though, I have it underlined in black. It's about the perspective, what-if scenario. So, imagery, as I'm reading, you'd never drink or laugh or even get out of bed in the morning. I'm thinking to myself, I'm having, maybe, hanging out at my friend's house, having some, Dr. Pepper or something, playing, a board game or whatever, and, just enjoying life. Or even get out of bed in the morning, just, I can picture myself being in a bed, trying to just get out of bed and enjoy the beautiful sunshine, beautiful day, who am I going to text, who am I going to hang out with, what am I going to do, and stuff. So I kind of the imagery part about it too, that kind of helps me realize, like, okay, what am I gonna do today? Am I gonna laugh? Am I gonna cry? Am I gonna get out of bed happy, sad? It just puts into perspective what is going to be brought about. As the other D with details go, you have to understand that the details in this paragraph are because of that Laura committed suicide, and how, like, these outside details, how, like, okay, why is he talking about this? Why is he talking about you'd be ruined as God? Like, it's because that Laura killed herself. And for syntax, there's a lot of hyphens, and it helps Captain Chase get his point across, because it's kind of like, it kind of connects how, if you knew everything, if you knew what was going to happen, if you knew the consequences, the hyphens, in a sense, kind of connect the whole, like, ideas together, so that way it's not all just disentangled. It's more so, like, it's more coherent, and it helps you understand, like, okay, if you knew this, if you did that, this is going to happen. What also helped me understand the book was some of the symbolism that Atwood portrays in her novel. And I really like the symbols, because it's actually, like, it's not like, oh, like a bird symbolizes peace or whatever. It's like actual, like, symbolism, and I really liked that about her. It's like symbols actually mean something, and, like, it's not just like a everyday symbol. It's more so like, okay, this is like a really cool symbol that I would not think about using in, like, a short story that I would write. So, like, for the first symbol, the button factory that Captain Chase owned, he was like the owner of the company and stuff, and how the button factory burnt down, it's kind of symbolic of life and moving on from turmoil. So how the button factory burnt down, that's kind of like, okay, like, that was his life, that was, like, how he made a living of himself, and after it burnt down, that's kind of symbolic of, like, okay, even though that I had a hardship in my life, the button factory can also symbolize, life in general, because, like, that was basically Captain Chase's life. He went to work, he founded the button factory, and how it just burnt down. It could also mean that, it's kind of lighting another torch for maybe something else to happen. It could light a torch for Iris to maybe look into perspective, okay, my father's factory burned down, maybe I can learn something from it. It's kind of like, it's just a symbolic reference of, like, how life does come to an end. Even though it's, like, a little darker symbol, I kind of really appreciated how, like, not all symbols can be like, okay, a heart can symbolize love. It's like, okay, the button factory, it burnt down, life will end. And I found that pretty interesting. And then another symbol that I found was like the photographs in the book. I remember towards the end of the novel, Iris was looking at a photograph of her younger self with her sister, and the photographs, in a sense, captured time and also help you remember the memories that you had and experiences that you've gone through. And I like how the photographs, they capture time, how we've said how, time is frozen and time is limited in the book. So, like, the photographs are an extremely accurate representation of how, the photographs definitely represent how they capture time, because they're not going over the pictures, basically. So, like, when Atwood writes, and how she's like, oh, okay, we can't live life not knowing what's going to happen. We gotta not know the consequences, so that way we can experience life. How the photographs kind of represent that, I found pretty interesting. Now, for the critical perspective that I chose, while I was looking at the list, I was kind of thinking to myself, okay, can I do psychological, like, some of the more popular ones? And I actually chose historical. Like, I've never really, like, used historical a lot in the past books I've used, so I thought, why not? Maybe I can find something that kind of relates to it. Kind of a little harder perspective. And I chose historical because Captain Chase has mentioned how in the book that he was a veteran of World War I. And I kind of was thinking to myself how, okay, the book is talking about how you should live life to the fullest and how you should definitely not take advantage of what's going on around you and your surroundings. I kind of thought that was a really good perspective because how World War One came in 1914 and kind of relates to how, okay, life's going to be ending. There's going to be deaths. There's going to be blood shed. There's going to be tears cried. There's going to be families torn apart. And, I found that really relatable to how Laura, committed suicide and how, okay, since, even though this book took place after the war, around 1935, how the father, had drilled these lessons in him. He probably had, it doesn't say in the book, but he probably had some friends die in the war, and him losing his daughter definitely probably brought back memories, and he definitely wanted to show Iris how, what he learned in the war, and okay, this is what I've gone through, this is how we can get through it as a family. Definitely also too about World War One is people are fighting for a reason, and it's sort of relating to how there are people out there fighting for their families, and how there's a reason that you should be alive. There's a reason in the wartime, there's a reason why you're out there fighting. And also, too, it's related to how, while you're living life, you're not just living life to just, wake up in the morning. You live life for a reason. And I found that pretty accurate because, we sometimes, even, some of us as seniors might be thinking to ourselves, what am I going to be doing in college? What am I going to be studying? What am I going to be doing as a career? And I found that really relatable to kind of how, you're living life for a reason. And sort of how, people just don't know what they're going to do in life, and I found that very relatable. So for the reader response question, I actually chose a personal connection because I felt that it would help me understand the novel better. And so how Iris, the main character in the book, she grew up without a mother. And, that's definitely, even before reading the book, that's just if you grew up without a mother, then that's just you lose a parental figure in your life. You lose someone who essentially gave birth to you. You lose that person in your life. And, she lived life smelling the roses, meaning how she lived life, not taking things for granted. She had her sister commit suicide. Her mother wasn't in her life and stuff. And it was just really hard because, if you grew up without a mother, in a sense, that's really, that's super hard. And kind of relating it to my life, I have two loving parents, and if I grew up without my mom, or even my dad, for matters, if I grew up without one of my parents, how would I have viewed life differently? How would I have learned things, and how would I have become as a person? Definitely I do take things for granted, and this novel kind of actually helped me realize that, okay, time is limited, and I should definitely not take things for granted like I do. I should definitely learn from Iris and Atwood and how I should definitely just appreciate things more. And, I should enjoy time while it lasts. I'm going to be freshman in college soon. Even though I'm commuting, I'm going to have all my friends leave. So, I should really enjoy time while it lasts. Definitely enjoy the summer. Definitely enjoy the time while I have before my friends all leave for college, which is going to preoccupy all of our times. And, just definitely enjoy life with my parents, my family, my dogs. My dogs are getting older, and they're not going to be living forever. So I definitely have to make sure that I utilize my time tremendously in a great way, so that way I can live life happy and not live life without regrets. And that's definitely something I should thank Atwood for, and also thank Iris for. Now, to a connection to media, I actually related to a TV show called My Hero Academia. And this show's about a kid named Deku. He's the main character. He's about 15 years old. And what he wants to do, it's kind of a superhero show. It's kind of like the show has, each character has some superpowers. And, the main goal is some people want to be engineers. Some people want to be doctors, lawyers. But, the main, crave right now in the show is, people want to be heroes. And they want to be, popular and publicized for them doing good deeds and stuff. And Deku wants to become the world's greatest superhero. And, Deku grew up without a father, and it was only him and his mother in the household. And that kind of relates to the novel because Iris didn't grow up with her mother, and to kind of figure how Deku grew up with only him and his mother, it kind of made him more like emotional in a sense because girls are more emotional than guys, and typically, and how like, okay, Deku kind of can understand people better, and actually like in the show, he doesn't have too many friends and stuff. Definitely, especially not a lot of guy friends. So like he's alone a lot for a lot of his life, and everyone's like, "Oh, you're not gonna be a great hero. You can't do this. You can't do that." And kind of the main goal of the show is how Deku just wants to prove everyone wrong, and how he wants to just like, okay, you say that I can't do this. I'm gonna show you how I can do this and how I can become a better person despite my past and despite just me like going through such adversity and such problems in my life, and how I can use those problems to my advantage and become the world's greatest hero. And I related that to Iris in Blind Assassin, because how Iris is like, okay, despite the troubles in my life, I'm going to live life to the fullest, and that definitely, I found a connection between one of my favorite shows and The Blind Assassin. So for the final creative connection, I chose to write a poem myself about kind of like being blind and just like living life. And so the title of my poem is called Blind. So being blind does not mean not being able to see. You can see the forest for the trees, the jagged cuts of rock, even the deepest cracks in a stained piece of glass, or the shimmering pieces of sand in a desert. As soon as someone you love, you cherish, you envy, tears open your heart and laughs at your worthless feelings omit from the life of a man who cared, you feel like a mount of ash, left to be blown away in the wind. Being blind does not mean not being able to see. Being blind is when you look at yourself, when you really look at yourself and think, why am I here? And this is kind of like how I was reading the title, and it was called The Blind Assassin. And I'm like, okay, when I first tried looking up the book, I thought it was like, okay, be like someone who's blind. Well, I took away that being blind doesn't mean that, you can't see. Being blind means plenty of things. And just like how, when last line in my poem, being blind means when you look at yourself and you say, why am I here? You're just you completely omit everything in your life and you just think to yourself, why am I here? And that, in my opinion, is like, in a sense, being blind. Because if you really don't know why you're here in life, and you don't know, like, why you want to be the person you want to be, why you are the person that you are, if you don't know those reasons, and you don't know the past that you had, then I believe that you're, in a sense, blind, or oblivious to the sense of, like, okay, why am I this person? Why am I even here? Definitely, so for as soon as someone you love, you cherish, you envy, tears open your heart, and laughs at your worthless feelings, omit from the life of a man who cared, you feel like a mount of burnt ash left to be blown away in the wind. Just kind of like how someone, if, you can't let the people who put you down just make you feel worthless, like a amount of burnt ash in the wind. You have to rise above the people, the obstacles in your life that make your life hard, whether being people who bully you, or just a rough life at home, maybe even school, maybe you're not a strong student. You can't let things in life deteriorate you and dehumanize your values, and you have to look them in the eye and tell them that you're not blind, and you know that why you are here.